Welcome, everybody, to There Will Be Bets. This is part 2 of our Thanksgiving week coverage, week 13 overall coverage. For this episode, we're going to dive into the full Sunday slate since we already got you guys all the picks for Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving with the family, hit some winners there. Now we're going to get you ready with all of the usual stuff for the weekend. We're going to cover one more best bet for each of us since we already gave out one best bet in that podcast earlier this week. We're going to name the guys we like to score touchdowns. We'll throw out some props. We'll touch in on the best of the rest, and then we'll get you guys out of here with some plays for Sunday. So we're going to start the podcast, and this week we're going right into it. We're going to start with the rants. We don't have any storylines. We're just going to rant a little bit. Each one of us has something teed up. Hopefully no one gets a little too upset here. But Jake, what's your rant for the week?
Yeah, my rant is going to be in that round robin. We needed to hit 3 to make money. 4 obviously was the big winner. We had 2 outright wins. The Browns were a no sweat. Had that as a best bet as well. The Cowboys with an insane come from behind win, down 21 in the first half. Might have been even the first quarter. Came back, gave up 0 points in the second half to the Eagles, won that game. And then the other 2 lost in overtime. The Colts were up 11 going into the fourth quarter and ended up losing that game in overtime to the Chiefs. And the Cardinals were up in the first half, down a little in the second half, brought it to overtime and lost. So close to a big payout on that one.
Yeah, no, Jake, that was a tough one. I agree. I told you on your round robin there. It was so close. I feel your pain there, but it looks like on one of those plays, Drew has a rant, kind of related to one of those games. Drew, what are you feeling this week?
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd call it a rant. I think I'm going to just showcase some accountability here. I'm going to put the hand up. Yeah, I was wrong on the Raiders. That game was over pretty much immediately. Shador takes him down the field and scores on, I think it was their opening drive. And I was really worried about the pressure that the Raiders could get on Shador, and turns out it was the other way around. It was Myles Garrett just well on his way to breaking the sack record, and yeah, the Raiders couldn't do anything. I refuse to bet them moving forward. That team is an absolute dumpster fire. Geno Smith should not be starting in this league. But side note on that, I gave you guys a lot of credit so far. I think we're 12-6 in best bets. I think I'm 2-4. So you guys are just absolutely backpacking me right now. You guys are seeing the board a lot better than I am.
You know, I think we'll get a turn around for you there. Obviously, it's a small sample size, and I mean, obviously, if you're looking at teams like the Raiders, I can see where if you just get them on your do not bet list, it will help narrow down your winners for you. Because again, just teams like that we got to stay away from. So I think that'll do you some good too. But all right, that'll bring me to me, and I have a very specific rant this week. But we all, as a country, need to have a conversation, and it needs to be about Taysom Hill. He was fun 5 years ago. He's not fun now. I don't ever want to see him get the ball again. I don't know if there's a government mandate in the state of Louisiana that the head coach of the New Orleans Saints has to give him carries, has to give him pass attempts, has to give him touches, has to give him snaps. But he is an absolute anchor to a team that is already struggling. And every week they find new ways to waste possessions using Taysom Hill. This week they lined him up at running back. I know Alvin Kamara got hurt, right? I get it. They lined him up at fullback and at tailback, and they handed him the ball, and he went nowhere, handoff after handoff. Meanwhile, you have rookie Devin Neal from Kansas, who shows explosive ability that we're just apparently not going to even let show what he can do because, again, we're government mandated to give the 6'3" tight end snaps under center on the goal line to try and pick up a yard when he just gets stuffed because he can't even get low enough to get through a defender. It's crazy. I think as a government mandate, I think maybe we need to call legislators in the state of Louisiana to get a new bill on the books to make sure that this stops happening. This is the third head coach, so obviously there's something at play here. I don't know if he's got blackmail. I don't know what, but I'm done with Taysom Hill. It was fun 5 years ago. I'm out now. I don't ever want to see him again. And otherwise, I think you just can't even bet this Saints team because he's just such an anchor. So that's my rant for the week. We'll move on from there. We'll touch on the Saints a little bit later, and hopefully maybe we can find a way to play an angle that gets us away from Taysom Hill.
Yeah,
Completely agree.
10 carries, 17 yards, a whopping 1.7 yards per carry for Taysom. It's a negative EPA proposition every time he's getting the ball.
I didn't even bet the Saints, and yet I just was angry watching the game. Every time they went to the red zone, they just had to give it to him, got stuffed every freaking time. I don't understand it.
Yeah, and like I got it. Sean Payton, that was his guy, right? He drafted him. He is gonna use him every which way. Dennis Allen comes in. Dennis Allen was on the staff with Sean Payton. He isn't an offensive minded guy. He's letting his guys do whatever. But Kellen Moore is supposed to be what, an offensive genius. He led the Eagles offense to the Super Bowl last year. I respect Kellen Moore enough to believe he knows Taysom Hill is not good. So I don't know what is at play there in New Orleans, but it's just disgusting. Like it's just bad football. All right, well now that we got the rants out of the way, we're gonna hop into best bet number 2 for each of us on the week. This is gonna be for the Sunday slate. Each of us got one of them to tack on to our best bets for the Thursday and Friday slate. Jake is gonna lead us off here. Looks like he's taking a team that he sees some value against a up and coming quarterback, shall we say? Jake, who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Niners -5. Going back to the Browns again. Last week we took the Browns. Think it was a really good spot. This week going against the Browns, rookie quarterbacks are 46% against the spread in their second start in general. And then you add on a win in their first start. Second game after a win, rookie quarterbacks are 42-91 straight up and 58-73 against the spread. So really bad numbers in their second start. Niners are also still in a division race, still have a lot to fight for. I know Brock Purdy struggled a little bit last week, but if anything, I think that helps him. He's going to refocus. The one thing that does worry me is obviously Myles Garrett. He's an absolute monster, but I think that it's going to be kind of a low scoring game, and the Niners are just going to pull it out by a touchdown or more.
Yeah, I think this look makes some sense here. I think that a lot of teams in the league are struggling, obviously, with Myles Garrett and that defense in general. The one thing the Niners, despite all of their injuries and all of the struggles they've had, have not struggled with is pressure this year. Their offensive line has actually managed to stay a little injury free compared to what we usually see. They still have Trent Williams on one side. And again, the rest of the offensive line is healthy. So I think you could see them negated enough. Plus, Shanahan and his scheme, they get the ball out quick a lot. They like to dump the ball down to guys like McCaffrey, which negates, the pass rush, puts Purdy in a little bit more comfortable situation. I'm a little wary after what I saw from Purdy last Monday with the 3 picks and a half, and that was against the Panthers defense that is nowhere near this Browns defense. So that worries me a little bit. It's probably why I would stay off of laying points. But I think you're looking at this game the right way. I think there's now tape out on Shadur Sanders. We didn't see him do much of anything, but there's tape out, right? So even a guy like Robert Saleh for the 49ers can find ways to exploit what he sees there. And again, the stats you're saying about rookie quarterbacks in their second start, it's just a known trend, right? We as a betting group like to do that a lot, no matter who the quarterback is. And especially in this case, I don't think the Browns offense is really a potent machine regardless of who the quarterback is. So I think the look makes sense. Yeah, sure. I can support you getting involved.
The one thing I will add to it is the Browns defense, as amazing as it has been, it has struggled out of the backfield from running backs catching balls. And the one thing the Niners do better than anybody is receiving out of the backfield.
I think that all makes sense. So Jake's going to lay the 5 with the Niners against the Browns this week. Drew, you're going with an underdog, same division as the Browns. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm sure Jake will love this. I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers plus 3.5 against the Buffalo Bills. I'll start on the offensive side of the ball for Pittsburgh. So really liked what I saw from Rudolph last week. We talked about how we thought that was still a decent matchup against the Bears. It does look like Rodgers maybe goes in this one. I do still think it's a slight upgrade from Rudolph. Saw DK was limited, but he likely plays. But the big thing for me as far as offensive advantages for the Steelers, looks like Bernard is going to be out for the Bills. That's big for their run defense. If you go back and look at the games Bernard's missed over the last couple of years, you see a big drop off in their success rate against running attacks. So think that Warren and Gainwell are able to have some success on offense. The one thing the Bills do a pretty good job of this year is getting pressure with their front four. But if Rodgers is in there, I don't worry about that as much. He's pretty good about getting the ball out quick, not letting edge rushers kind of have their impact on their offense. So I think there's some running advantages for Rodgers and company, and he kind of negates the strength of the Bills defense. Flipping over to the other side of the ball, Alex Highsmith likely back. I think Joey Porter likely plays. And then the big advantage here, Spencer Brown, you saw him getting absolutely bullied by Will Anderson last week. He's out this week. He was playing injured all throughout the week last week on Thursday night. I think that's huge for Highsmith, for Watt. I think there's some major advantages for them on that right side. Bill's offense has been super reliant on Allen and Cook making big explosive plays. The Steelers have shown a bit better capability of limiting those since their changes in the secondary, moving Ramsey back to safety. So I just think there's advantages on both sides of the ball here. Give the Steelers the edge in special teams well with the GOAT Boswell, and Prater's been pretty shaky for the Bills. And as always, it is a Tomlin spot. Home dog, catching over 3. I would not be surprised if they win this outright. I think the Bills have some serious issues.
It's a rah Mike Tomlin spot. I completely agree with everything you're saying there. The Steelers looked at some stats today when going into this. Thought about making it a best bet as well, but I did like the Niners more. But I like them both a lot. The Steelers are 5th in total sacks, 2 behind the Seahawks, so pretty close to that 4th spot. Like you said, the Bills have been struggling with their offensive line and pressure. 2 of the last 3 games the Bills have played, they lost, which is the Texans and the Dolphins. They had high pressure and high sacks given up in those games, so they've struggled a lot when it comes to stopping high pressure teams, and obviously the Steelers are one of those teams. And then you already touched on it. Bills' run defense has been absolutely horrible this year. I'll go into it later with one of the props that I like, but Buffalo has given up over 100 yards on the ground in each of the last 3 games, including 180 plus against the Bucs and the Dolphins. I just think it's a really good spot, and I like the play.
All right. Well, Jake and Drew both agree it is a quintessential Mike Tomlin spot, the rah-rah spot, as Jake would say. For what it's worth, I agree too. I think it's definitely the only way I would look in that game. So that will bring us to best bet number 3, number 6 overall for the week. It's going to be my best bet, and I am going to be taking the Colts -4 versus the Texans. This matchup is kind of multifaceted for me, actually. So number 1, I think it's a classic buy low on the Colts. I think it's a sell high on the Texans. Texans off the big win on Thursday night, everybody watched last week. And then the Colts obviously have been struggling. The overtime loss against the Chiefs, they looked a little unsteady. They lost the Steelers a couple weeks ago. So I think it's kind of everyone's talking about Daniel Jones, pumpkin watch, all of this stuff, right? I think it's a little bit of a buy low spot on them. More importantly, CJ Stroud coming back, he might be a little rusty. I'll take a chance that maybe he starts a little slow with an offense that can't afford to start slow, especially against a Colts team that I think can jump out to a lead early. But the meat of this handicap really comes down to the trenches. It comes down to the big boys on both sides. The Colts offensive line is the best offensive line in football this year, and there's no doubt about it. They are number 1 in literally every pass protection metric you can find. They're number 1 in pressure rate, number 1 in sack rate, number 1 in success rate. So as far as the Texans defense goes, yeah, they're scary. Will Anderson scares me. Daniil Hunter scares me. I trust this offensive line to negate a lot of what they can do. And then even more importantly, the Colts are a run-first team. Guess what? Their offensive line is number 1 in pretty much every rushing metric as well. They're number 1 in yards per carry. They're number 1 in yards before contact. They're number 1 in success rate in rushing the ball as well, as far as an offensive line goes. So if you're talking about somebody, a group of 5 guys that can really negate what the Texans want to do most, it's going to be this Colts offense. Then on top of that, if you look at the Texans run D, which is again where I think this game is going to be won or lost, the Texans run D is actually middle of the pack. They're in the middle 13th, 14th range in pretty much all of the important run metrics. Yards per carry allowed, they're 13th. Rush EPA per play, they're 13th. They're also 14th in rush success rate. So you match that up with a team that is first in all of those metrics on offense, I think there's definitely going to be some opportunities for the Colts to do what they do best and get Jonathan Taylor going. And then, okay, so we're going to look at the Texans defense. They are good against the pass, right? They're an elite pass coverage unit. They run a ton of cover 3 and cover 4, and then they also lean into man as their 3rd highest coverage. Out of those coverages, the only one that Daniel Jones really struggles against is cover 3. He's actually had pretty good metrics against cover 4 and cover 1 this year. So I'll take my chances that if they can get the run game going, he can stay comfortable enough. Maybe he'll turn the ball over once, that's due for the Texans. But again, I think that this Colts offense can do what they want to do well. And then, like I kind of said on the flip side, I don't really trust this Texans offense to really scare the Colts defense, who has looked better, especially with the addition of Sauce Gardner. They've gotten better. I think they can really put CJ Stroud into some situations where he gets uncomfortable, especially if they can get any pressure. CJ Stroud is terrible against pressure. I know, the lack of DeForest Buckner has left them with a little bit less pressure overall, but guys like Latu and the rest of their linebacking core have been able to make up at least some of that production. So overall, I think this is just a good spot to buy low on the Colts, sell high on the Texans.
I had it circled as well. We talked offline a little bit. I thought the line move was a really good indication of where the sharps are in this one. You saw it go from 3.5 up to 4.5, even with Stroud being announced in. I do think that it is an upgrade from Mills to get him back, but could see some rust as you mentioned. And I've been a skeptic of the Colts defense all season. I think Anarumo may be a little outdated, but it's hard to argue with the talent that they've infused on that team, especially in the secondary. And like you said, the Texans isn't really an offensive attack that I really worry about. You saw Mahomes throw all over the Colts in the second half. I just don't expect that from Stroud. It's been pretty Collins heavy. I do like some of their young receivers, but I think they're able to make this a pretty one-dimensional game, allow their pass rush to kind of get after the Texans line that struggled at times heavily this season. And I think Jonathan Taylor has a lot of success. You saw Cook break out a big 40-yard run at the beginning of that Bills game, and they kind of seemed to get away from that running game as the game went on. Went into a lot of passing downs early on and really let Anderson and Danielle Hunter just tee off on their tackles. So I'm in line with this one. I like the Colts.
All right, Drew agrees with me, so hopefully that's a good sign for the best bet luck to turn around for him and for me to kind of keep it rolling there. But that will bring us to the end of the best bets segment. We're going to jump into the touchdown scores, the guys naming dudes segment here in a second, and then we'll get you all the names you need to know in our little bit of a condensed Sunday slate. Before we get to guys naming dudes, just want to remind you to leave a like on this video if you do enjoy, and to make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything coming from us. Like we said earlier, we had 2 episodes out this week to cover everything with the Thanksgiving games and the Black Friday game as well as the Sunday slate, so you definitely don't want to miss it when things like that happen. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell as well so you never miss anything coming from us here on the channel. All right, now it's time to name some dudes we like to score this week. It is a smaller slate, so we're going to do our best to find some value for the people, but just be warned, some of these games are a little ugly. Drew's going to lead us off with the games he's covering first, and then we'll get you all the way through Sunday night like always. Drew, take us away.
Yeah, really, really tough slate to sort through, but starting with the Titans and Jaguars, going for a bit of a long shot here. I like Cam Ward. He's sitting at about 10-1. A lot of this really was me finding no real weaknesses around what the Titans and Jags want to do on offense. Titans running defense pretty strong with Simmons back in there. Titans passing attack pretty weak against a vulnerable Jags passing attack, but Cam Ward, since they're coming off the bye, 9 carries in the last 2 weeks for 70 yards and a touchdown. Jags have given up 2 rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks this year, so I think that price is pretty intriguing at 10-1. Moving on to the Jets and the Falcons, another low total game sitting at 39.5. I like Kyle Pitts, just over 2-1 plus 230. Most of this is around the Jets' struggles against the tight end, giving up 53 catches for a little over 400 yards and 7 touchdowns to tight ends. I brought up Kyle Pitts a couple weeks back when they went and played the Colts overseas, but like him even more with Cousins. In the 2 games he's been in there with Cousins, 14 targets, 11 catches, 84 yards, much higher usage in those 2 games, and I think you see him mix in a lot more here. I like Kyle Pitts. Moving to the next game, Panthers-Rams. I like Rico Dowdle. He's sitting at about plus 140. Really didn't like a whole lot in this game. Pretty juiced numbers on Adams and Williams, and even Puka was sitting at about minus 105, so don't think there's a ton of value there. Since Dowdle took over full-time again in Week 9, he has 16 of 20 red zone carries over Chuba Hubbard. Should be getting a healthy diet of carries in this one. I was really frustrated, as I know Jake and Cole were, with the pass play that Canales went with on 1st and goal early in that game the other night that led to the interception. So I think a lot of this is narrative-based. I like Dowdle to get a lot of usage, and he continues to out-snap and out-carry Hubbard a lot in the red zone. So I like Rico Dowdle. And last but not least, the Dolphins and the Saints. Lower total as well. I like Jawan Johnson. He's sitting at about 3-1 in this one. Total's around 41.5, but I actually think this matchup favors both offenses a bit here. The Dolphins have had a lot of issues against both the tight end and outside receivers, so I considered Olave as well, but they've given up 7 touchdowns to opposing tight ends, and Jawan Johnson, with Shook in there since the second half of Week 8, has seen 21 targets, 18 catches, and 2 touchdowns. He scored in 2 of the 3.5 games that Shook has been in there. So I see continued usage for him. Hopefully we see less Taysom Hill. They lean into Neal a little bit more and start to go after Johnson continuing in the red zone. So I think that 3-1 price is really really juicy. I like Johnson in this one.
Looking at the slate this week, there was not a lot of games that I liked over the ones I reviewed. One of the ones that I did like was the Bucks versus Cardinals. I like Bucky Irving, sitting at about even money. The Cardinals have struggled against the run this year, especially in the red zone. And the Bucks have done really well on the ground, especially in the red zone area. They've had a mixture of running backs. All of them have scored. I like Bucky Irving in this one. On to the Browns-Niners game. I don't like anybody. Don't take anybody in that game. Maybe the Niners defense if you want to go for a long shot. On to the Colts Texans. Once again, don't like anybody. The only person I like is Jonathan Taylor because the Texans have struggled like on the run, I guess, giving up touchdowns. Texans don't give up touchdowns. So maybe Jonathan Taylor, but he's chalky. Anyway, on to the next game. Seahawks versus Vikings. I'm going back to the well. I know last week I took Kenny and didn't score. I'm going back to the well again. Kenny played every red zone possession except one last week, and of course it was the one the running back scored. But he's been getting the majority of the shares in the red zone for the Seahawks. I like Kenny again.
All right. Well, Jake, I kind of agreed with you. I don't know how you got saddled with the worst of the games, so I'm sorry however that fell. But I at least actually like 3 guys in my games. I only have 3 games for us, obviously, again, the shorter slate. First is the Steelers versus Bills. It's kind of a hot hand thing here, but let's go with Kenneth Gainwell again. I think that the Bills' run game is very susceptible, like we've talked about, and he's getting a ton of goal line carries. Arthur Smith loves him in that running back to that goal line, that short passing game, screen game in the red zone stuff. So I think at plus 225, absolutely worth a look there. Jumping to the Chargers versus Raiders game, this one's simple. Take whoever starts at running back. Omarion Hampton might be playing. If he plays, take him. If it's not, take Kamani Vidal. The Raiders' run defense is awful. They give up so many touchdowns to the running back. They're top of the league in that. And every week you're seeing, no matter who it is, good running back, bad running back, good running team, bad running team, doesn't matter. So whoever starts at running back, take him. I'm going to say it's going to be Omarion Hampton, but if it's Kamani Vidal, take him too. It's going to be a little bit of a heavy number, probably around minus 130, 140, depending on who it is. And then finally on Sunday night, it's the Commanders versus Broncos. I like Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin is kind of becoming Bo Nix's sneaky favorite target, so I like that he's getting more targets every week. He's definitely a deep threat. This Washington secondary is bad. They get beat over the top so often and have done nothing against any receivers. Doesn't matter who they are. Big, small, deep threat, not deep threat. So if you're giving me a guy who's actually a deep threat, we'll take the shot. And just to cap that all off, I mean, Washington is actually bottom 3 in wide receiver touchdowns this year. So you're just looking good. Even with the Broncos offense, I don't necessarily trust. I think Troy Franklin's worth a shot at about 2-1. Well, now that we got you our best attempt at the Guys Naming Dudes segment, we're going to jump into the primetime picks for this week. Only 2 primetime games, obviously, with Thursday and Friday being different this week. We're only going to cover Sunday and Monday night. Jake's covering Sunday Night Football. It's Commanders versus Broncos. It's not the prettiest matchup, but it looks like he still has a play that he likes in that game. Jake, what is it?
Troy Franklin, anytime touchdown. Book it. Troy Franklin this year has actually been insane. Like Cole said earlier in the podcast, he's been getting a lot more targets this year, even more than Sutton. He's becoming Bo Nix's primary target. Not only that, he has 14 targets and 11 catches in the red zone. So Cole said he's a deep threat, but also guy loves him in the red zone. I really like Troy Franklin, and his number continues to be high around plus 215 right now. I feel like there's just a lot of value there.
That's a fun way to play the Sunday night game, a little bit more value. That way you can root on at least something exciting and what could end up being a pretty ugly game. So now we're going to jump to Monday. This game is interesting. It's a rematch of some of the most famous Super Bowls in history. It's Patriots versus Giants. Drew, what are you looking at in this game?
I like the Giants in this one, seeing +7.5, +7 in some spots. Really thought I was going to like it more with Winston, but it does look like we're going to get Jackson Dart. He practiced in full yesterday, and shifting my thinking, I actually kind of like it more with him in the game. So Giants defense, very, very bad against the run. We saw that play out with Jahmyr Gibbs last week, running all over them. That's not where the Patriots have had a ton of success. I do think Henderson is an upgrade. He got the bulk of the carries still, even with Stevenson back. But he really has only had a couple explosive runs in that Bucks game. Everything else, he's been held. I think his longest carry in every other game is around 9 yards. I considered his longest rush under prop, but I think they're able to limit that. And the passing defense has been the only positive spot in the Giants defense, and that's really what the Patriots have been relying on, is that deep ball for Drake May. It is a cold weather game, look like forecast somewhere in the high 30s, some wind could negate that a little bit. But my favorite part of this cap really comes in with the Patriots run defense. So since Milton Williams went out late in that Jets game, this is a much different run defense. You saw last week, Chase Brown averaged just over 5.5 yards a carry last week. This is not a Bengals team that had a lot of success running the ball all season. I think this is a different team without Milton Williams. I think the Giants reestablished the run. A lot of RPO with Jackson Dart. I think they have some success there. And like I said, I think this total is sitting around 46. I think it probably trends towards an under. And I love taking 7.5 with a game that I like the under in as well. So I'm going with the Giants.
I think it's another case. I know we said it last week, but when you get late in the year, this tends to be a trend. I think it's another case of just a little too many points. I think this Giants team has proven at this point they are frisky. They're not going to win a lot of games. They're just not a great football team. But even as we saw last week against the Lions, this team has enough. They have enough competitive spirit. They're playing hard for Kafka. And I think their offense, like you said, with Jackson Dart in there actually makes a better matchup against the Patriots. I think the other part of it, too, is when Jackson Dart's in there, because they're run heavier, it slows the game down. There's less plays, and there's just less room for a team to win by margin. And then on top of that, if you're the Patriots at this point, what does this game mean to you? It's a Monday night game. It's in the middle of the late stretch of the season against a team you probably should beat. It feels like kind of a sleepy spot, especially coming off the Thanksgiving weekend. It's a weird game. I can definitely see a world where it gets a little sloppy because of the weather. Drake May maybe has more of a human game than he's had in recent weeks. And, again, maybe it's a 17-10 game you cover by the hook, something like that. I could definitely see it playing out. But I definitely think the only way I'm looking in this game is the Giants.
And he had a pick six last week. Drake May did. Like, you can see, like, signs are starting to appear that he can't just backpack this mediocre receiving core the whole season. Like, their running game hasn't been fantastic. It's really been a lot of credit, as we've talked about, to McDaniels and Drake May deep balls. Yeah, that's what they've been relying on all season. And if you're not able to run the ball consistently, which is where the Giants are weakest, I think they hang in the game.
Yeah, and one final note on the game, Will Campbell being out for the Patriots is big. This Giants team, they're one thing they've kind of been able to hang their hat on all year is that pass rush. Like Brian Burns, if it wasn't for Myles Garrett, should be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. Dexter Lawrence is always a massive problem. And then, Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau haven't been thrilled by either of them in their careers so far. But that's a formidable pass rush, especially against now an offensive line who was already not strong and lost its best asset. So I think, again, maybe look for a turnover or something like that to happen too, and all of a sudden it keeps the game tight. Okay, we covered the two primetime games we've got left on the slate this week. Now we're going to jump over to the prop corner. We've got 3 different props where we see some value for you guys. It's kind of covering a little bit of everything here, so it should be fun. Jake, you're looking at that Steelers game. What do you got?
I got Jaylen Warren over 63 rushing yards. I mentioned earlier, but Buffalo has given up over 100 yards on the ground in each of the last 3 games, including 180 plus against the Bucks and the Dolphins. The Steelers' run game has actually been one of their stronger suits on offense this year. I just like the yards for Warren.
All right. Drew, you've got to play in the Falcons game. What is it?
Yep, I'm going Kirk Cousins over half an interception, just to throw an interception. Kirk Cousins I think we can all see hasn't been strong in his 2 games that he's taken over for Penix. He has 8 interceptions in his last 9 outdoor games. And elephant in the room, in case anyone hasn't heard, the Jets still don't have an interception this season. So we're getting a plus number on Kirk Cousins to throw an interception in an outdoor game, cold weather, wind, total under 40. I think we get it here. I did consider Kirk Cousins to throw a pick parlayed with the Jets money line around 4-1 there, because I do like the Jets a little bit in that game as well. But yeah, I think Kirk Cousins costs it up for us this week.
Got it. And for those who did listen to our part 1 earlier this week, we talked about the teaser with the Packers and possibly the Jets. So you could have played that game that way too, or maybe you do the tease lines and then you throw in that interception, get yourself a nice little parlay going there. Just a little note I like to throw in there. And then if that game wasn't stinky enough, I'm going to go to the Saints-Dolphins game. I'm going to take Devin Neal over 32.5 rush yards. Now I know, I ranted about it to start the podcast. My arch nemesis, Taysom Hill, could easily be the biggest risk to this play. If Taysom Hill gets a bunch of carries with no yards, it might just be that we don't even get the volume necessary for Devin Neal. Devin Neal actually went over this number last week, even though Taysom Hill was getting the carries. Devin Neal is the actual number 1 running back on this roster with Alvin Kamara out. I do think he has some explosive ability. We saw it last year when he was at Kansas. It's why he was actually brought in to be the supposed backup to Alvin Kamara. And I think that he is at least dynamic enough that with this Saints team that just commits to running the ball even when they're down, you should get the volume, assuming there's not a bunch of snaked carries. That 32.5 yards, it takes one big run. And this Dolphins defense is actually one of the worst bottom 5 in all rush metrics this year. We've seen time and time again teams have been able to take advantage of them on the ground. Now, again, the one concern is that this Saints team tends to end up behind early in a lot of games. At this point, Kellen Moore has continued to run the ball even when down. That could be the issue too. But this number's just so low, I'm going to take a stab at it, especially given that he is the RB1 in a situation where you would at least hope to get about 10 to 12 carries for him to get over 32.5 yards. All right, so we're going to jump into the best of the rest. We have a little bit of a smaller best of the rest segment this week. Again, smaller slate. It's just going to be a couple of plays that I'm bringing up. First and foremost is going to be another under. We've done well betting unders this year so far, so I'm going to try it again this week. It's going to be the Commanders versus Broncos under, and the cap is nothing fancy here. The Commanders have bad pass protection, and the Broncos have a great defense. They can rush the passer. They're leading the league in overall sacks, despite how good the Browns have been. The Broncos are still actually number 1 in total sacks as a defense. The Broncos secondary is an absolute menace, and I do not trust any of these no-name receivers for the Commanders to get open. I think it's going to be a very, very, very tough time for the Commanders offense. And then on the other side of the ball, this Broncos offense has made a living off of scoring no points against bad teams and still winning games. So I think 17 can probably win them this game regardless. And I trust Sean Payton to do whatever he can to shorten this. At this point, the Broncos do lead the division. They're kind of just trying to keep their guys healthy, get to the end of the season. This is another one of those weird out-of-conference late in the season games. It's Sunday night. These primetime unders have been good to everybody this season in general. So I think we're going to take the under 43.5. I think there's a good look there. I even maybe would consider playing some alternate unders if you're really looking to take advantage of a really bad matchup for Washington. And then, as always, like to throw out some college plays, kind of get those in the mix. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the crazy thing that everybody is going to clown me hard if it misses, but I'm taking Ohio State minus 10. I think that this is the game where they finally get the monkey off the back. I think that Bryce Underwood could struggle against this defense and it could look bad. I think that if Ohio State plays with all of their guys healthy, if we see Jeremiah Smith, we see Carnell Tate, and we see Julian Sayin out there slinging the ball, this could get real ugly, and it could finally be the one thing Ryan Day has yet to do at Ohio State, which is beat Michigan. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the points. Feel free to come jump in the comments, especially if Michigan finds a way to win this game again. I will take every single arrow you want to sling my way, but I'm going to go ahead and do it, and let's see if Ohio State can finally get things done for us.
Completely agree on that. I think that either Michigan comes out and wins the game, which I don't think is the case, or Ohio State comes out and absolutely destroys them. I actually am thinking of taking alternate Ohio State because I think, if they cover the 10, I think they're covering 20.
Yeah, I think you touched on it better with like the Smith and Tate playing. If Ohio State has their weapons and they take the approach they took in the playoff, which was we're not going to try to just bully teams, that's not how you want to play against Michigan. They have the guys up front to compete, especially on the D line. But if you just go out and throw the ball, Sain has been excellent this season. His numbers against pressure have been great. He is on target percentage. Everything has been really good from him. I think if you try to air it out on Michigan, that's where you're going to see success. And assuming Ryan Day doesn't get in the way of messing with their game plan and trying to prove that he's the bigger, stronger man, I think you see them do things that they did to Tennessee in the playoff, things they did to Oregon, where they just outplayed them through the air. They have the best receivers in college football. You go look a litany through the NFL. There's a reason that all these guys are going in the first round. They're just more talented than some of the guys that Michigan has in the secondary. So yeah, I agree. It's a gross play. It's one that you don't feel good about placing the bet as you do it, but I think it's the right side.
And for what it's worth, for those out there looking to play this game as well, I think you can probably wait on it too. I think that there's a good chance that when everyone else gets involved Saturday morning, the narrative, we know what it's going to be. It's going to be Michigan, Michigan, Michigan. And I think you might even be able to get a better number. I'm playing it now because obviously I want to give it out today. But I think that there's a chance it even comes down a little more just because of that narrative. And again, if you want to join in the narrative, I can't argue with you. It's just one of those things that sometimes sports isn't about the X's and O's. It's just about the mentality. And maybe Michigan just has that mentality. But I'm going to go ahead, like I said, please, if I'm wrong, I deserve every piece of criticism you can throw at me, but we'll see how it plays out on Saturday in the game. All right, well, now that we covered the best of the rest, that means we're here to wrap up the podcast. Obviously, again, a little bit shorter episode. We don't love this slate, but there's always a chance to find some value, find some winners for you. As far as our agree board and our head-to-head board go, we really only have a couple of things on the agree board. It seems like everybody was in on the opinion that it is a Steelers, a rah-rah Mike Tomlin spot, a good chance for them to get right against the Bills. And then we had some agreement on the Colts being the right side against the Texans as well. Again, like we said, nothing head-to-head, and we're going to see how this one plays out. Obviously, we only gave out one best bet each. We did the other ones, like we said in that episode. If you missed it, you can still go check it out on the channel. But otherwise, that's going to wrap it up for the podcast here today. Before we head out of here, we just want to ask one more time, if you did enjoy the video, to make sure you leave a like. If you want to see more content like this every week where we cover all of these angles for every NFL week and NFL slate, then go ahead, subscribe, hit that bell as well, so that way you never miss a thing from us. And we'll be right back here next week to give you the full betting slate on what should be a better card, a full NFL week slate next week. So otherwise, best of luck on all of your wagers this weekend, and happy holidays from us and the crew.
Let's have a week.
There you go.